Welcome back to Rapid, an action mecha game with tons of customization that me and my friend Michael are working on. It's been around a month since the last devlog, so I figured I'll make another one to keep you guys in the loop as to what is going on with our project. This time I have some interesting and crucial to the game features to show you. Let's hop right in. If you are a regular viewer of these devlogs, you might have already noticed that we redesigned the main reticle you used to aim with. Let's look at the old one. This chunky, small and cluttered UI element not only obscured a lot of enemies, but also wasn't made to display proper information to the player. AKA, it only meant to display the bullets in your revolver for your right hand and the sword charge for your left hand. Since you cannot put any weapon in either of your hands, the whole element needed to be redesigned. We are still adding elements to the reticle and rethinking some elements of its design, but for now it looks like this. Designing UI elements in cases like this is more of a challenge than you might think. Where do you display health? How thick it is? How about stagger? How do you differentiate between them? Via the shape, thickness or maybe color? How do you display ammo or distance, etc, etc? After quite a few design iterations that even featured different reticle shapes, we settled on this one. However, keep in mind that this is still a work in progress. I am happy that I can finally see the enemy I'm fighting, and not just staring at the circle the whole time. For the enemy health, it will now show how much damage you are inflicting to it by displaying the health before and after a hit. That's another thing that is important for the game juice, and many games do that. The health itself will also be split in chunks. Every 250 health, the bar will be cut in a small split, and every 1000 health threshold will host a larger gap. This is done for player feedback, meaning that you can judge how much health does any given enemy have not only on its design, but also looking at its health bar. Many games do this and I always find it to be a welcome addition. In the middle of the reticle you can see an inner circle that adapts in size depending on how far you are from an enemy. Since a lot of weapons in the game feature a stat called effective range, the new reticle needed to adapt to that as well. The inner circle can also host a crosshair. If the crosshair is outside of the inner circle, your bullets will most likely ricochet from an enemy and deal minimum damage. If it is inside, you are in your effective range, and the bullets will register damage normally on a successful hit. Before going into the next section and explains this new cool level to you, it is important to be transparent as to what our goal is with the game and what are we trying to achieve. In the first devlog, I said I wanted to make a demo and put it on Steam. Fear not, the plan is still the same. Sort of. What we are doing right now is not called a demo, it's rather a vertical slice. Vertical slice is an industry term for projects that are high in features but low in content. By looking at the vertical slice, anyone will be able to tell you what you do in the game and how main gameplay will look like, because it is high in features. But you won't be able to see a variety of levels, enemies or bosses, aka content. By polishing most of the gameplay but not making many levels, we can achieve a project version that will serve us as a vertical slice. It is an extremely important milestone for game developers, and for us, having a vertical slice will let us pitch the game to a variety of PC and console game publishers. If we pitch the game successfully, a publisher will help us push the game to the release in a variety of ways, but those depend on the publisher. Now that you know our next big milestone, let me tell you what will be featured in our vertical slice. Number 1, a player's hub. A crucial thing to have in a mecha game. Here you customize your mech with different parts, firepower and colors, choose your missions, save loadouts and configure the game settings. Number 2 is 2 to 3 playable levels. The levels must be different from each other in terms of the structure, mood and atmosphere. This will showcase level variety. Number 3, 3-player mechs whose parts you can combine differently for the sake of customization. Light, medium and upcoming heavy mech will be featured in the vertical slice. Number 4, 7 to 9 weapons for the player arsenal. We want different guns that function in their own unique ways. Revolvers can hold down the trigger for power shot, assault rifles with underbarrel weapons, shotguns, laser-based weapons and even a flamethrower. Essentially, introduce a big variety of playstyles when it comes to our weapons. Once we get all of these things done, the vertical slice will be built and distributed to the publishers and put on Steam as a demo for free. Let's now get back to the new stuff. What you are seeing is one of the levels that will go into the final version of the game. Michael made these modular brutalist meshes that can be put together in a variety of ways to create hostile environments for you to navigate through. Most levels of the game will also feature customizable moods that we can swap on the fly. Those moods will add different fog, clouds, change sky color, and later on weather effects like rain, blizzards, or sandstorms. This level is still a big work in progress, but I'm glad to show it to you since I'm not very keen on hosting these devlogs primarily inside a boring test level, in which I spend most of my time testing features, animations, guns, etc. One of the most anticipated things to showcase in this devlog are the enemies, according to your feedback. The enemies you saw in the last devlog are pilot-free, aka they are controlled by our artificial intelligence. When 3D modeling, Michael set up a variety of meshes that work together when making enemy drones. For example, a drone can have any gun that I want, because he made it so that any gun will fit on any of the base. This is the flying heavy drone with 2 machine guns. Those 2 same machine guns can be put on a walker drone, because the base has the same central shape. Same goes for rocket launchers, anti-air guns, and all of the other variables we will introduce in the future. But you're not here to watch me talk about soulless drones. You are here for that mech on mech action. Well, I have been busy making enemy mech AI, and for the most part, they work. I have to say, enemy mechs can be quite brutal, but this exhilarating fast-paced duel is a nice contrast to fighting enemy drones. The way I programmed the mech was that I gave them a stat called Playstyle. For now, there are 3 of them. Playstyle 1 is an aggressive close combat mech, the one that will chase you down and try to stay as close to you as it can. Playstyle 2 is a playstyle designed to keep a medium distance from the player. And Playstyle 3 is for long-range specialists. I can assign a playstyle without touching anything and the mech will behave according to that playstyle number. I can also give them guns and mech parts just as easy, just by assigning a value. This way I can put an enemy in the level and essentially customize them however I see fit. It is up to me to decide what parts, guns or combination of guns will go together with what playstyle. I'm already scared of shotgun and melee based enemy mechs. Overall, I'm happy with how they behave. When I play against them, they don't seem to get stuck in geometry or in the air. Making enemy mechs smart is one of the things I will take very seriously going forward. I hope you are happy with how current mech duels look like. After all, things like that are Mecha 101, right? So, another very important thing to add to the game was another set of equipable utility. As it stood in the last devlog, a player could equip almost any weapon in either left or right hand. After looking at the options, I felt like it offered too little agency. You can equip weapons that can be fired with left or right trigger. I wanted more options for the player, so at first I introduced a new mechanic called a core ability. This is something you would equip internally in your mech, and you can use that on cooldown. The first core ability that was implemented was an energy shield. If your core is off cooldown, you could spawn a shield that upon taking a set amount of damage, explodes in a big area dealing both damage and stagger values to the affected enemies. And with that, I still wasn't happy with additional non-weapon options. To summarize, I had 2 weapons of your choice and a core ability. Weapons would be on the triggers and the core ability would be on the right shoulder button. And the button mapping was the reason I felt like I finally started working towards the right direction. You see, the left shoulder button was always responsible for the downward descent. For those of you who don't know, it's this mechanic right here where you propel downwards if your player state is in midair. Having it bound to a shoulder button was honestly a very early decision dating to months and months ago. So I started thinking, in order for me to open up a left shoulder button, I had to move the downward descent input somewhere else. A button is for ascending and jumps. B is for dodging. Y is for reloading and interactions. Right stick is for locking on and left stick is simply too bad mechanically to ask the player to hold it down. D-pad is also out of the question simply because your thumb needs to rest on the left stick for the movement most of the time. But the X button is my current bind for player boost. The boost only happens on the ground and when pressed mid-air has no effect at all. So the solution was clear. Move downward descent button on the boost input. After some programming, it works like this. On the ground, the player will go into a boosting state and in mid-air, the player will initiate the descent. Not only this is more intuitive, but also the left shoulder button is now open for binding. After scrapping the old core system, both shoulders are now unbound. If I am to put customizable functionality on them, those options have to be interesting not only via gameplay, but visually as well. So I had to call Michael about this and we had a brainstorming session, at the end of which we came to a conclusion that the shoulder buttons will be assigned but not exclusive to their individual areas, along with the functionality. Get this, upon equipping a slot with an ability you also get a visual representation of what you have. This here are the homing missiles in the back slot. Assigned to the right bumper, you can fire them directly from the chambers, and that's how all the slots will function. Another new system is the player's weight. Imagine it like this. This bar represents your very minimum and very maximum weight. Let's split the bar into 3 parts. If your mech weighs under 10.3 tons, your mech is put into a light category. Between 10.3 and 12.6 tons rest a medium category. Over 12.6 tons are heavy mechs with slower movements but increased health pool. These weight pool values are far from finished, but for now at least we set up how they would work. Most functionality will remain the same across all weight classes, since I am dynamically changing the movement speed, dodge cooldown, upward acceleration and so on, meaning that the difference in feel won't be much different between, let's say, heavy light and the light medium mech, since their weight is close to each other on the weight scale. However, what will change are the animations for most movements. Only light mechs can slide on the ground while crouching, while medium mechs will be able to do an improved sprint instead. Same for descents. Light mechs will have a spiral screw maneuver while medium ones will have a cannonball drop. I can't show you how heavy mechs will function because we did not implement it yet, but my idea with weight classes was to offer players alternative playstyles when it comes to movement and general controls. And now we come to the end of this devlog. I also wanted to mention that we are slowly redesigning all of the visual effects for the game, like the player boosters you might have already noticed. All VFX needs to fit in the art style of the game, otherwise it just looks extremely out of place. I'm very happy with how development is going and I hope you are too. Thank you very much for watching these devlogs and supporting the project. If you wanted to see extra development footage and tinker with the ideas, please consider supporting the game on Patreon. I post early development videos, images and chat with the community about the latest implementations and changes. Massive thanks to our current supporters in the Commander tier. Weakest Brazilian Male, Crazy Serial Eater, Faz, Slepe, and Turbo Chicken. You guys are legends. Also, you may catch me streaming on Twitch when I'm not endlessly programming. For now, thank you so much for watching these devlogs and supporting the development. Like, subscribe and all of that good stuff, and see you next time. This is where the video ends.